Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to give you 5 different ways that you can make your art journal page stand out and be unique, even if you're using some of the same products as other people. So I am working on my Canson Mixed Media 7x10 art journal page. I have given it a coat of gesso and I've taped off the part. Now I'm going to use this napkin. My napkin is from NINNYSNAPKINS.com. There's a link in the description box. I've rough cut it out and I am additioning it on the page. Now, anybody can use this napkin. But what I'm telling you is one of the ways that you can make your page be unique is by taking a pre-made, purchased focal image, a printable, and picking and choosing the parts of it that you want to use. So here I'm using the main part of the napkin, but I am going to add to it. You can add, you can delete, you can cut off parts that you do not want and make it work on your page so that when people look at it, they're going, that kind of looks like this napkin, but I'm not sure. So the number one way to make your page unique is build your own focal image using printables, using stamped images, using napkins, magazines, and the like. Mix and match and create something that is uniquely your own, even though parts of it other people might be using. So I'm just additioning what I want to add to this based on the size of the page that I want to use. Some of the decisions aren't made, but you get a napkin, you've got lots of parts. You can even mix and match elements from different napkins. So when you're using napkins, you have to pull off the excess plies. There's usually 2. Before you glue it down. Now that I'm happy basically with what I want, I'm just adding 1 or 2 things on the one side just to tie in. I want a little bit more of that pink on there for my own purposes. So once I'm kind of settled on that, I guess I'm going to cut off some parts that I don't want. So again, I'm editing. I think I'm going to go this way, but don't be afraid to layer up napkins. They work perfectly well. Now I have this stamped image, printable, that I have, and I don't want this part of it. So I'm just cutting it off. Just because a stamped image looks a certain way doesn't mean you have to use it in its entirety. So that's kind of 2 examples. Now back to the napkin. After peeling off the excess plies, I am going to use my liner brush with a little bit of water, put it on, let it soak in for a couple seconds, and then I'm going to pull this off. That gives me a deckled edge that's going to look better on the background. It eliminates a lot of the bulk. It disappears, the edge disappears better, and it's a look that I like. Now, even though the background here is white and when you glue it down, it's going to pretty much go transparent. I like to get rid of that bulk. It looks cleaner than it would otherwise. And I don't like the straight edges at all. So I find this step is necessary for me. But if you don't like doing this, you can absolutely cut off as much as you want and glue it down, especially if the background is white. If it's colored, you're going to have to deal with it in a different way. That's something for another video. So I'm still kind of tweaking how exactly I want to arrange my girl, build my focal image. So this focal image is going to be with the stamped image and the napkin. There, I'm taking this part off. I can put it high, I can put it low. I'm just quite decided, and I have lots of options. Now that I know where this is going, I'm putting a coat of fluid matte medium underneath it and on top to seal it. That's really important for a step that we're going to do later. You want to seal it so that it turns into a non-porous surface. That's going to allow you to put other medium on top without damaging the napkin. And there I go, gluing this in and making my own composition. Not sure exactly where this girl is going to go, but I'm going to decide as I go. Now, the second way that you can really make it your own is with the background. Anything from color choice, techniques, stamps, stencils, collage items. This is a huge place that you can really differentiate your art journal page from somebody else's that's using the same napkin, that may even use the same stamped image. Here I am stenciling on some text. I like to see text below. You could use a script stamp. You could glue book paper on there and get a similar but different effect. Lots of ways to get the same thing. So these are all those individual choices. You know, creating that background is the most rewarding. Now, I could have gone with a blue background here, a green background, a light pink, but I'm going with a neutral background. I want the flowers to really pop. They're bright, they're vibrant. That's why I chose to use this. So I'm using unbleached titanium with some gesso. And I'm just brushing that on, kind of washing it. I want that text that I stamped on or stenciled on to show through. And I'm painting kind of in between when there's little white spaces, very neutral. It would be a completely different look if I went with blue or green. The background that I'm going to create looks kind of like wallpaper behind this bouquet of flowers, so to speak. If I wanted to put blue or green back there, it might look more like an outdoor scene. Huge opportunity in there. Now I'm going to use this foam stamp. I am putting white gesso on here and I'm putting it on fairly thick and I'm stamping. And I'm using white. Now my background's very light. I am choosing to make this not stand out. If I chose to use blue, I get a very different look. Or pink, right? Every choice you make is going to make it more your own. So when you're looking at my tutorials, use what you have, use the techniques, maybe even the colors, but tweak it up or change the colors and use the same napkin. But you don't necessarily need the exact same products that I am using to create a wonderful page. I'm loving this very neutral background. It really reminds me of wallpaper at this stage. Now, the third way that you can make it your own is by DIY mark makers. This is a stamp that I made using fun foam. And I have a whole selection of fun foam stamps that I've made. I could cut my own stencils, either with my Silhouette or Cricut or just with an X-Acto knife. I can use different mark makers that I've gotten out of the recycling bin, bottle cap. Those are things that are purchased that are going to make your page all the more unique and differentiate it from everybody else's. Because even if you did something similar, it's not going to be identical. So I'm loving how this is coming together. I'm happy with my choices. Now, the number 4 way of making it your own is to take those focal images, in this case, the napkin or a magazine page, and do what I call overpainting. And when I'm overpainting, I am giving it a wash of color, I am brightening it up, I am changing the colors, all of those things, giving it a more painterly look. So it doesn't look like you've just glued down a napkin or a rice paper or a magazine picture. If a magazine picture and she's got a green shirt and I need it to be blue because I want it to match something else, I can put a coat of gesso and paint it blue. And you're going to see me change that middle orange flower in a bit in that way. Here I'm giving it just a wash of color. I'm making it a more vibrant purple. Other places I'm really globbing on the paint more heavily, and it's getting a very painterly look. You can try to match the colors exactly, or you can change them. Now here, I didn't like the color of this flower. For some reason, it just wasn't going with what I had. So I'm giving it a coat of gesso. I'm kind of whitening it out, lightening it, and then you're going to see me come in with the quinacridone magenta that the two hyacinths are that color and bring that into there. I change my mind later, FYI, but this is the way you can change it. Slight coat of gesso, let it dry, and then paint it the color that you want. Now here I'm using all acrylic paints to do the wash, to paint over. Other times I use my Inktense blocks. Both of those things are permanent. You could use your watercolors or scribble sticks or Neocolor 2s. So there I've changed the color. It's not as pastel-y and I like it. But again, FYI, I'm going to be changing it down the road. So here's the hyacinth, and what I'm doing here is with my brush, I'm kind of globbing on white gesso, and then you're gonna see me come in with the quinacridone magenta and glob it on. And that's giving it a little bit of texture, making it look more painted than glued on. Now, when you start doing overpainting, it's really kind of scary and overwhelming. Just do a few items. Flowers are really good. Watercolor, they're very forgiving. Um, you'll figure out. And as you go, you'll see how easy it really is. A lot of the times when I'm doing a wash of color over it, I'm thinning the acrylic paint and I'm just brushing it over, just brightening that focal image up so it stands out from the background, so it has more presence on the page. And I'm doing a lot of that. There's a lot of overpainting that I'm doing with this particular napkin and art journal page. I don't always do as much. I might have just done the hyacinths. I might have just done, I think what are crocuses? These are obviously spring flowers, springtime flowers. You can select one or two items and just do that. So again, that's how you individualize it from one to the other. One you might do all of them, another one you might just do a couple of the elements that were there. Now, when you take this napkin, and I kind of made my own composition of it by layering it up, that also allows you to just cut part of the napkin and use it, build it up if you're doing a bigger page, or cut out parts to make it fit a smaller page. So that gives you some benefits on that. Your art journal page you might have a 9 by 12, whereas, if I had just used the main part of the napkin as it was, it would look a little small and out of place. The size wouldn't quite fit. So I might have used almost two of the panels or more of that on a larger page. Here I'm just overpainting the green, giving it a lot more presence on the page. And I'm mixing paints. The green was kind of muted, so I had to mix my Hooker's green and I added just a little bit of black and that kind of dulled it down. Here I'm taking these pom-pom flowers and I'm making them a little bit more vibrant. I want them to stand out on the background. I'm tweaking the yellows, making it brighter. And then I'm getting some quinacridone magenta. Oh, there I got some black and had to wait it out, get it out. And then I'm coming in with quinacridone magenta and introducing the quinacridone magenta into the yellow. It wasn't there on the napkin, but that doesn't mean I can't add it to make it go with everything I'm doing on the page. These flowers are very blue. I didn't like them, so I'm just adding a little bit of wash of gesso and making them more white. There was too much blue on the page for my liking, so I'm altering it. So between cutting and mix and matching printables and focal images to build your entire focal image, overpainting is the second part of that. And sometimes when you're overpainting, you use a color and it doesn't quite sit right, and you might have to revisit it and tweak it. But when it's acrylic paint, you can easily do that because let it dry and then paint it over. Sometimes you might have to do a coat of gesso to kind of use gesso as the magic eraser. Here I'm just adding the green grasses in. And I could, you know, paint grasses where there are none. Now that flower I did not like. It didn't turn out really well, even though I tried to change the color. So I decided I'm going to print or glue down the stamped image here right on top of it. Hide what you don't like. And I'm gluing that down. Now, here is the fifth way of making a page your own. Adding sentiments. There is the selection of the sentiment. Does it mean something to you personally? And then you can use stamp sentiments. You can cut them apart, stamp sentiments apart. You can stencil sentiments. You can get stenciled words on there. Or you can buy digital sentiment packs like the Garden Gate. This is one that I have put together, and it and 12 to 15 others are available for purchase at NINNYSNAPKINS.com. I'll put the link in the description box if you're interested. Now, you can use them as I've done them, or you can do what I'm doing here and cutting them apart, getting rid of some of the white and having it fit your page. All of those things help you make your page unique. So even if I was using that same sentiment on a different page, it's going to look different. Now that flower behind there, I don't like that color is peeking through because I want to paint the girl's dress pink and it would look funny. So I'm using my gesso as a magic eraser, like I said, it could be. And then I'm just painting, adding a little bit of green in there, just kind of changing it all together because that's what we can do when we want to make it our own and make everything work together. And no one's the wiser that that napkin was under there, that that pink flower has now been turned into foliage. And now I can go on and I'm just painting the girl's dress, quinacridone magenta, add a little Prussian blue in there. So I get kind of purple, multicolored tones in there. Again, just making it my own. I can tweak the color and make everything on the page work together. Even the color selection, right? You have complete freedom with a stamped image. You color it however you like it. I like painting with acrylic paints here or my Inktense blocks. You might want to color with your Posca pens or whatever markers that you love. Just adding some details. So I have my little stamped image in the midst of the bouquet. I'm just adding shading and highlighting and doing all those things that you do on a page. I edge around the page with my black acrylic paint and my angle brush. And then I'm looking for my woodless charcoal, or not woodless, charcoal pencil, and I'm just getting some shading around the sentiment. And that's part of making it unique. Again, the sentiment. Am I outlining it with a Posca pen? I'm going to get one look. If I outline it with my gel pen, I'm going to get a slightly different look. Doing it with the charcoal pencil gives me a different one. Here, I'm just doing some very messy sketching around some of the focal images here. I'm not doing all of them. And again, it's just giving a different look. If I didn't do it, it looks one way. If I do it, it looks another. And that's again part of making it your own. The techniques that you choose, the finishing you choose. And I decide, I did shade around the edge, but I liked the way the charcoal pencil was looking. So I'm just going around it, kind of tying everything together. Sometimes, a lot of the time, you're revisiting something because you've made a different decision and now you need to go back and make everything tie in. I'm looking at the background here and I'm thinking, I want some green in the background. There's some green in the plants and I want that little bit of green. So I grab a stencil and my stencil brush and I'm just putting ever so slightly a little bit of green into the background with this stencil. A page isn't done until you say it's done. But could I have left it the way it was? Absolutely. And again, if you're following my tutorial and you want to kind of duplicate it, if you like what I do, then use what you have and try to make it work. If you don't like that step, please, by all means, skip it. Make it your own. Here, I decided to use my stylus with some of the bright yellow paint. And I'm just dotting the centers of the flowers. That's just adding some vibrancy, and I really like how that added to the overall page. And I'm just going to peel off the tape and we have the finished page. Love how it came together. I'm happy with the choices that I made. If I was to do another page with the same napkin, it could look totally different. So go out and make it your own. Use the 5 ways. Until next time, go get creative.